What's going on, YouTubers, gamers and hobbyists? Welcome to another episode of There Is Only Warhammer, and in this episode I'm looking at missions. Right, you know the drill. Let's go. Missions are still a big part of the new Warhammer 40,000. Well, that's good. Experienced players will often tell you it's just as important to play the mission as to obliterate your enemy to secure victory, and that's just as true now. Well, that's good, because otherwise it's going to be pretty boring. There are a lot of missions in the new Warhammer 40,000 book, which will give players hundreds of hours of variety. Excellent. The most basic mission, Only War, is flexible enough for any style of game. This mission works with armies of any size, though two that have comparable total power levels work best. The mission will be available as part of the free rules in the Warhammer 40,000 Battle Primer, and of course in the new book itself. Only War, so that's interesting. So presumably this is like a snippet of it. So it says, Only War. The time has come to prove your worth as the greatest warlord in the galaxy. All that stands between you and ultimate glory is an enemy army bent upon your destruction. Forgive the dogs. Got the armies. In order to play this mission, you must first muster an army from the miniatures in your collection. I'm sure we can do that. You can include any models in your army. Sometimes you may find that you do not have enough models to field a minimum sized unit. This can be found on each unit's datasheet. If this is the case, you can still include one unit of that type in your army with as many models as you have available. The battlefield. Create the battlefield and set up the terrain. The players must then place objective markers to represent sites of tactical or strategic import that one or both armies are attempting to secure. Objective markers can be represented by any suitable marker or piece of terrain. Each player must place 2 objective markers anywhere on the battlefield, so long as they are at least 10 inches away from any other objective marker. We suggest taking turns to place these, starting with whichever player wins a roll-off. A player controls an objective marker if there are more models from their army within 3 inches of it than there are enemy models. Measure to the center of the marker. Primary objective. Before setting up their armies, both players roll off. The player who rolls the higher then rolls on the primary objectives table, see right, to determine which are used during the mission. Deployment. Once the victory conditions have been determined, the player who did not roll on the primary objectives table then divides the battlefield into 2 equal-sized halves. Their opponent then decides which half is their own deployment zone and which half is the other player's deployment zone. The players then alternate deploying their units one at a time, starting with the player who did not pick their deployment zone. Models must be set up in their own deployment zone more than 12 inches from the enemy deployment zone. A lot of words saying deployment zone, deployment zone. Continue setting up units until both players have set up all the units and their armies, or you have run out of room to set up more units. Yeah, it's a very repetitive rule set run through there. Power level. Before battle begins, determine each army's power level by adding together the power ratings of all the units set up in that army. Whichever player has the lowest is the underdog. If both have the same power level, let the player who assigned the deployment zones is the underdog. If the difference between the power levels of the 2 armies is 10 to 19, the underdog receives 1 command reroll, and if the difference is 20 to 29, the underdog receives 2 command rerolls, and so on. Each command reroll can be used once at any point during the battle to reroll a single dice. First turn. The underdog chooses who has the first turn. Battle length. The battle lasts for 5 battle rounds or until one army has slain all of its foes. Victory conditions. If one army has slain all of its foes, it immediately wins a major victory. Otherwise, at the end of the battle, the player who has the most victory points wins a major victory. If both players have the same number of victory points at the end of the battle, the underdog wins a minor victory. Primary objectives. D3. Victory conditions. 1. Slay and secure. At the end of the battle, each objective marker is worth 2 victory points to the player who controls it. Players also and D3 victory points if the opposing army's warlord was slain during the battle. 2. Ancient relic. At the start of the first battle round, but before the first turn begins, randomly select one objective marker. Remove the other objective markers from the battlefield. At the end of the battle, the remaining objective marker is worth 6 victory points to the player who controls it. And 3. Domination. At the end of each turn, each objective marker is worth 1 victory point to the player who controls it. Keep a running score from turn to turn. You can see that the mission is simple to set up with the varying objective types, and still make it a variable game that will have a lot of replayability. Does sound like it, yes. For you veteran players out there, you may be looking for something a bit more in depth. Fear not, you will have plenty of options. There are free open play missions that give a bit more variety to your games. Annihilation, Hold at all costs, and Death or Glory. Each an archetypal mission fit for any collection. Narrative play brings more options still, and the rules for these missions are a bit more in depth. There are 6 of these in the book: Meat Grinder, Ambush, Patrol, Blitzed, Sabotage, and Rescue. Each comes with not just new mission rules, but 3 new stratagems for the attacker and 3 for the defender, making these games quite distinct from a traditional game. Here are a few examples from the Sabotage mission. No, I won't go into those, but there you go. Stratagems in this mission: players can use command points to use the following bonus stratagems, and there you got silenced weapons, camouflage, extra explosives, sensors, cut the wires, and extra sentries with their appropriate command point costs. And of course we have matched play. A lot of these missions will be familiar to players today. You still have your 6 Eternal War and 6 Maelstrom of War missions, but with a few tweaks since their last outing. One big change is we now have 6 deployment maps rather than the 3 of today. Interesting. Players of a certain vintage might recognise some of them from even older editions, and I'm sure they will. I'm sure we're going to get people going, oh yeah, that's from second, or the blah blah blah. Hey, more is good as far as I'm concerned. As well as some changes to the missions and maps, we also have changes to the objectives, particularly in the Maelstrom of War. The objective deck has been redone from the ground up while keeping the feel of that type of game, with its constantly changing and updated orders. The biggest change in Maelstrom of War, though, might be this little addition: a new stratagem that any army can use. Well, we'll read this one. If this mission uses tactical objectives, a player can use command points to use the following bonus stratagem for 2 command points. New orders. Use this stratagem after generating your tactical objectives at the start of your turn. Immediately discard a tactical objective and generate a new one. How often would this have come in handy in the past when fate dealt you a poor hand? Exactly. We're back tomorrow to look at some more stats for the Primera Space Marines. Yeah, that all sounds really good. My only concern is the way this is all worded here. We're talking about objective. I don't know. It's just I feel it might be just a bit hard to read. Certainly not. I don't know. My opinions on that are I'll leave it until I see the whole thing. That could be just that one section or that one page, but yeah, deployment zone. It just, I don't know, repeated itself a lot. Maybe it can't do it anyway, I don't know. Anyway, that's just my thoughts on that. Remember, all brushes lead to war, folks. I will be back with the next one at some point. And yes, remember, all brushes lead to war. I'll see you on the next video. Bye for now, folks. Bye bye.